Hello, welcome to Dementia Talks. My name is Ted, and today's topic is what does it feel like to have dementia? This is a topic that I plan to come back to every now and then or periodically throughout this channel to help you see the changes that happen in me as my dementia progresses. As I said in the prior introduction, I'm going to do this as long as I am physically and mentally capable. So please keep coming back. Uh, you may see some dramatic changes. For me, they sometimes happen on a day by day basis, but for others, it could be a steady progression. I may even have flat spots where I have no change, which is good as well. But before we talk about how it feels, I have to kind of stop and predicate how it feels with my approach to life. And that is after I was diagnosed and I came to grips with what I had, as I mentioned in the introduction, I came in contact with other people, but I decided personally on my own to live positively, even with Lewy body dementia and the other physical ailments that I have. Um, that turns out to be a extremely important step that I made in my living with my diagnosis, living with Lewy body dementia, because living positively for me also means being thankful. And I know that that's difficult for most people when they're diagnosed with dementia, um, and because your whole life changes. But it turns out that living positively increases the serotonin level, and being thankful increases the serotonin level in your brain. And also, if you're negative, down, depressed, what have you, it decreases, not only affecting you mentally, but affecting you physically. So let's talk about the topic, let's talk about the topic at hand, and that is how does it feel to have dementia? So for me, dementia, and what I'm going to talk about is how it feels to me. This is not necessarily how it feels to everyone. It is not, I'm not advocating that this is what it always feels like. All I'm saying is this is what it feels like to me. And hopefully you may, if you, you may find yourself realizing that some of these symptoms are symptoms which you share, right? Um, the groups that I'm part of, and we talk about how it feels, almost to a person, acknowledge that these are the fundamental feelings and things which dementia causes. So I'm going to cover those. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about some of the things you can do as you live with dementia. So here goes. So the first thing is dementia is a broad term that covers both Alzheimer's and dementia. I have Lewy body dementia. My diagnosis was a year ago, February. It was reconfirmed this spring, and it is a very rapid approaching, aggressive form of dementia. Alzheimer's is also a form of dementia, but really in a category of its own because it affects you different mentally than other dementias do. Other dementias seem to focus mostly on the cognitive memory, whereas Alzheimer's affects on both short and long-term memory. Um, so in terms of how my dementia feels, it's um, it's it's like I have um, a fog that comes over me as I go through the day. In the dementia world, there is a thing called spending your chits. The concept is that at the beginning of the day, after my mind has had a chance to cache the short-term memories from the day before and I've had a good night's sleep, I start out with a certain number of chits. How I spend those in the morning affects how the rest of the day goes. If I spend them on something that is frivolous, watching a movie or whatever that is violent or has a lot of action to it, I'm going to burn a lot of chits because the pace of that movie is going to be something that causes me a lot of mental energy to keep up with what's going on. If I go to some place that's very crowded, I will spend a lot of mental energy just keeping track of where it's going on. That doesn't mean I avoid them, but it does mean I need to understand what is going on and the mechanism that's happening. On a normal day, if I do my podcast or I write my blog or I do art, about noon or 1 or 2 o'clock at the latest, I get mentally and physically exhausted. I cannot conceive of doing anything but laying down and taking a nap. And that fog that comes on me gets relieved a bit with the nap, at least enough to get me through the evening. So it's not as much as I would like to avoid the nap, I need it to help me get through the evening. Another thing that happens when you're the way it feels to have dementia is if somebody, especially in the evening, is talking to you, and they may even be somebody you know or somebody who understands what dementia is, in their talking to you like you don't have dementia, and sometimes that's easy to do because, for example, I have a very fast processor, as my doctor puts it. So it may appear to others that I'm still capable of doing everything that I used to. But the reality is, underneath the skin, that mental disorder is a disease is working at me, and it causes me not to be able to keep up, or again to spend more energy, more chits, if you will, so that ultimately it gets to be more and more of a struggle. In that line of thinking, I want to kind of address something. We'll address it later in other discussions, but this is an important concept that I want to introduce early, and that is that there is a perception that with dementia people who have dementia, that there is anger. Now, there may be anger, particularly with their new fate of life. There may be anger with how other people are treating them, but a lot of times the anger, and I would say 85% of it, the anger comes from people not understanding the disease and not dealing with them with an understanding disease. If I had cerebral palsy and I couldn't go up the stairs and there's only a stairs, clearly we would do something to help that person get on an elevator and make the stairs. Why? Because we can see the disease. Mental diseases are no different. No different. And the problem, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So part of the problem happens with people getting angry is because other people, even those who may be in the know, start disrespecting the person who has the mental disease, and they start talking past them. They start being demanding or argumentating themselves and not listening to the person with dementia. And guess what that breeds? It breeds frustration, and frustration breeds anger. Next part of having dementia is that it can affect you physically, depending on the type of dementia, and there are so many. Like I said, I have Lewy body, there's frontal lobe, there is vascular dementia. The list is, I listed the 12 most common in Wandering Light, and that's wanderinglite.com. That's the companion website that goes with Dementia Talks. So if you're looking for more information, if I cite something in an article, please go to wanderingLite.com to get more information. But back to how it feels. So when it starts affecting you mentally, one of the first things that people notice may be balance. It may be because they don't process this soon, right? So when one of the things that I had to give up early, which I think a lot of people, once they're diagnosed with dementia, end up giving up, is driving the car. Now, I do drive a little bit locally to get myself to a men's group, just a mile away, to go to church, to go to the drugstore, the grocery stores, all very close to where we live. But when I'm in unfamiliar environments, my processing time is too slow, right? A person could be walking out in front of me. I am trying to take in all the things that are going on around me. Because of the delay that the processing time takes, I may miss it. So for that reason, I am not driving, particularly in unfamiliar territory, on a highway, what have you. Fortunately, my wife is able to drive, but unfortunately, it's put all that burden of driving on her. And that, quite frankly, feels terrible. Coming to grips with that is very hard. There are times, especially in the morning when we're driving together, that I feel great. I feel like I could drive, but for safety purposes, I'm not. The next thing is how it feels is about confusion, right? One of the things that excuse me, that happens with dementia is you can get confused. Now, that's a big, broad term, and I want to be very specific about it. So specific things are like, it's called tunnel vision, and if I'm looking for something, say it's my car keys, right, that I perceive to have a tag on them, I can look everywhere. I can look almost exactly where they are. And if the set that's missing is the set that has keys on it, I will literally not see it. Right? I just tunnel in on what I expect to see, and unfortunately, things on my periphery don't come into my mental processing. That's very different than somebody who has a visual problem that can't see peripherally than a person like me with dementia that only focuses here. That's also a problem in something that we all do every day, and that is open the refrigerator. If you're looking for something specific and it's not where you normally have it, if you have a overstuffed refrigerator, you are definitely going to keep that door open way too long trying to find it, and it may be there, and I'm sure it's there, but you will not find it. So there are habits, like when and how much you buy groceries, that need to change to adapt to dealing with dementia. That's been hard for us because we've kind of eliminated or limited the amount of shopping that we did during COVID. Even with delivery service, you kind of buy in bulk or buy over a couple week period, and that's really stuffed up our refrigerator and makes it hard for me to find things. It deals down into my personal level. When I got dementia, I realized I needed to simplify. Just for this very reason, I reduced the amount of clothing that I had. I cleaned up my drawers. I changed the way my office is set up. I needed to reduce the amount of clutter in my life because it's a lot harder to process when you have dementia. And when you are looking for something and you can't find it, I think we all know that frustration. But it's even more frustrating when it could be just off to your periphery or slightly different than what you think it is. The next thing is, without a doubt, for people with dementia, is being depressed. If you go to Wandering Light you will find that I have listed the process that you need to go to deal with the depression that comes after your diagnosis, and actually can come later too as well. But reason it's depressing and brings on depression is, quite frankly, when you receive that diagnosis, you're going through the grieving process. You're grieving the life that you thought you'd have. You're grieving the life expectancy that you may have thought you had. All these things create and add to depression. And you may have gotten over it. And for me, I found my purpose brought me out of my depression. My connection to God brought me out of my depression. My God, I feel I have a calling to do this and to do other things that can help people that are struggling with dementia. But getting out of that depression, right, is hard. And even once you get out of it, you may find yourself coming back to it. Something may trigger it. You may be watching TV and now they start talking about the cruises coming back, and maybe you were a big cruiser or a particular type of vacation, or you just want to go someplace, and all of a sudden you realize it's going to be a lot more difficult. You may used to like to go to the ball games. You may used to like to go to concerts. Big crowds are a problem. Again, this information is available on Wandering Light in more detail, but trust me, too much noise, too many people are a problem. And when I get in that situation, I have immense anxiety. I just have to get out of it. There's no other solution for me. I can't meditate or do other things that I use to help kind of calm myself. That anxiety in that situation is a real problem. Last thing I want to cover is to talk about coping mechanisms. I've listed a number of things already, if you caught them, that were called coping mechanisms. Reducing the amount of clutter in the refrigerator, reducing the amount of space that you have in your drawers or in your closet, cleaning up your office, the things that if you worked out in a workshop, doing that. But there are a lot of other simple coping mechanisms that need to be done while you still have working cognitive memory, right? That you can do these changes, because opportunity for change may not happen if you put it off. So just like getting early diagnosis helps you because you can get on medications, you can adjust your life, you can make sure that you deal with your loved ones in a meaningful way that gives you time to deal with issues. But one of the key issues that you also need to deal with is coping mechanisms, whether it's getting in the habit of a to-do list, or or if you need to limit the amount of travel or where you go to get things, right? Or you stop watching action movies, right? All of those things help you with your are all coping mechanisms that help you live your day-to-day life in a more meaningful way. The last one, the most important one that I'm going to leave you with, is a coping mechanism called living positively, right? Living positively turns out to be about a habit. A year ago, February, when I was diagnosed, after I went through my depression and found my way out of it and made a decision that this is part of the purpose that I felt I'd been called by God to do, I realized that I had to start my day with positive thoughts. I had to start my day with a positive attitude. And that one decision has changed what I believe is my life over the last 18 months, because now it has become a habit. So let's start that habit and when it's early and when you can, so that each day when you get out of bed, like me, you're thankful for the day and you start your day with a positive habit. That's all for today. I hope this has helped. I hope that you can. This may create a number of new issues or questions you may have. I hope that you either post it on this channel or more particularly on wanderinglight.com. And the reason I asked for you to put it on Wandering Light is, one, you can identify, we can help you there with answers, but more importantly, we can share it with other people more effectively. So again, this is Ted from Dementia Talks and Wandering Light, signing out, saying have a great day.